My name's Cory Scott. I come from Victoria, BC, Canada. I'm an acrylic painter in a style that I call Urban Escapism. I describe my style of art as being urban escapist. That's kind of the best that I've come up with so far. Before I was painting, just the way I kind of daydreamed of things while you're looking out the car window or walking down the street, I would just see these little pockets, these little moments of, ooh, I like the way the color is, you know, the light is hitting the side of that building and reflecting off the leaves, and maybe there's a stop sign or some electric wires hanging across it there. And the whole thing would create this neat little kind of image, and it's just a split-second thing that you see. And it's so kind of quick, and if you move just one way to the other, you almost kind of miss it, right? So much of my art is contributing these little pockets, these little moments that you get of, yeah, you're surrounded by the city and all this stuff around you, but these are these little, neat little pockets of quiet where you can just zone out for a minute and tune out all the noise around you and just kind of find that little moment of peace. And I think that's so much what the urban escapist part of me is all about, is trying to show other people kind of how I view the city. So this painting is the ugliest building in Victoria. I think just about anyone who's from Victoria will tell you that this is the ugliest building. It's called View Street Towers, and it's this massive monolith of a building. That's one of the reference photos. I took several. You've got all these balconies out there, and you get this huge like facade of all these windows staring out, but when you look up at the building, like there's just no character to it whatsoever. This, to me, is in many ways what urban escapism is really all about. All these people living on top of each other in this urban environment, and yet everyone's trying to carve their own little niche and escape from the drudgery of it in their own little ways. You know, you just can't always see it. It's not always that apparent on first sight. When you look at it from afar, you realize, oh yeah, there are, you know, that's not just 400 people. Those are 400 individuals all doing their own thing, and have all made their little peace with living in this random building on their own. My earliest memories would probably be around the age of 6 or 7 or something like that. Drawing, actually, on my dining room floor in Brandon, Manitoba. We had this really big dining room where the sun came in through the windows. I just remember being happy as a clam doing that. You could just, you know, sit there all day long and just draw away. Probably fortunate too, I had a dad who worked at a paper shop, so he would always be able to take home reams of this and that and other little supplies here and there. So I would sit there and just draw my Transformers or get out some old OPG hockey cards and start drawing, especially the goalies. I mean, it's pretty much what I wanted to do ever since I grew up. We moved out here as a family. I was only 13 at the time, I believe. I do really remember it being kind of a love at first sight thing. But there were other aspects of it that were really tough. My parents were separated or divorced. And, you know, Dad stayed in Brandon, and that was obviously a really big thing, certainly for him and as well as for us. So it was, on the one hand, a tough move, but on the other hand, it was something I was looking forward to. You know, I've lived in the city for so long and I've been doing these walks for so long. It kind of really started when I was going to UVic and or Camosun College, and you know, on a Friday afternoon or something after class, I'd just walk home, usually kind of go the long way, follow all the way along the water sort of thing, and home at the time was generally always in Cook Street Village, so just, you know, beside downtown Victoria. So I've just gotten to see so well, but one thing I do like about it is you still find those little streets where you realize, like, oh, I've never seen this before, you know, how many times have I walked past her? So there's still the odd little surprise. The ironic part of it is that as soon as I moved out here, pretty much all the drawing and the sketching stopped. We had a lot of family deaths at that time. And it really took a big toll on all of us. My dad died when I was, I think, 15, back in Brandon. My stepdad died a couple of years after that. You know, you see these people that are so important to me pass away, and you think, well, you know, what the hell am I doing? Who am I trying to please here? It changed life so quickly, you know, that simplicity of being back and drawing and sketching in my dining room window on 12th Street North in Brandon was suddenly replaced by this, just a very different attitude towards life in general that I had. So rather than go to university, which everyone would have had me pegged to doing straight out of high school, instead I got a job as a dishwasher, just doing the meanest, hardest work I can. And then the traveling kicked in right away as well. My first trip was a classic Europe backpacking trip. I hit all the capitals, and then one after another, a trip to Jamaica, several trips to Africa and the Middle East. And then you just got this thing where you almost wanted to see how far you can push it. So I ended up doing, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 years in a row of doing these backpacking trips. And by the time I kind of worked my way through that and kind of came out the wash the other side, all of a sudden I'm into my mid-20s, and suddenly I'm looking around again and thinking, well, what is it that I used to do for fun? I do get some neat old houses in this area. Most of the inspiration I get is really just from doing little walks around the neighborhood, to be honest. That's a cool looking old apartment. Now, the city has a lot of beautiful neighborhoods, a lot of greenery and a lot of heritage buildings, but kind of beyond that, I think it's looking for just little, you know, just slivers, little scenes that just kind of catch your eye. It's the way the power lines cut across the trees, or putting in, you know, a stop sign or a no parking sign in the middle of an otherwise picturesque looking little scene. Funny thing is, travel just keeps seeming to follow me no matter where I go. I end up meeting my Aussie fiance. Don't think much about it at the time when I first met her, but there I was 2 years later, and suddenly now I'm moving down to Australia when I swore I was going to do career and never travel again. I became a travel agent, but it was a super stressful job. And that stress of that job, like, it would just send me up the walls. I mean, I was having a hard time sleeping at night. I just didn't deal with it well. And that got me one day to my partner suggested maybe I want to try her acrylic paints. She got a little starter set from someone for a present. I gave it a try. I hadn't really done any art at all in about 20 years, you know, give or take at that time. And suddenly it just clicked. This is where half the time comes, is just sitting back and staring at it and trying to figure out if you still like it or not. Huh. Definitely turned out a bit different than I expected. Let's see. Yeah, I've started the process a little bit of trying to vary up the balconies just by putting a few different little random things out there. So a little, I don't know, maybe a seagull. I might make it into a seagull flying by there. Had a little fella hanging up on the balcony. That red chair is drawing way too much attention to itself, so I got to find a way to mute that down a bit. Oh yeah, that's the line I wanted. Nice. Eventually I did end up with a bit of a collection of things in Sydney, and as much as we love Sydney, it's just a really expensive city. So we ultimately decided to move back to Victoria. And when we did it, of course, we had to sell everything in our apartment. People started coming in and asking me about the paintings on the wall, you know. They come over to buy the blender and say, hey, that looks pretty cool, you know, are you selling those? I thought, well, yeah, sure, what the hell. That really kind of made me start to think about it, so that by the time we moved here, it really just all became all about, all right, let's put this plan into action. So when I moved back here, I was really keen on painting a lot of the heritage neighborhoods that are here, because there's such a cool history behind the city of Victoria. And this one is, you know, neighborhood of Fernwood here locally is this real kind of artsy, pretty kind of hip kind of little neighborhood. But it's known for its crows, of course, so I put those in the foreground. This is a real house somewhere on Fernwood Road itself. So this one is really kind of, frankly, wish I did kind of more of these, a little bit more whimsical, really not taken from a photo at all. And that was something that shockingly came together really quite quickly late one night. This is from Redfern Street, which isn't far away from here, maybe a 15-minute walk at most. They've got this yellow house and they've got this yellow VW van parked right in front, and they've even got the matching VW mailbox, which was really cool. Had to move the mailbox over on this side of the painting just to make it work a bit and balance out my yellows. And again, I've just added in the raccoons because this is something that I really wanted a local Victorian to look at. You know, this is my more style of painting. I'm not going to do the Parliament or rather legislature or the Empress Hotel. I'd rather do something that a Victorian would walk by, and even just the recognizing the kind of debris that you get on the streets here from all the Gary Oaks that we have locally. But I'll shoot us down this way. This is one of those where you just instantly see it, you know, there's no question about it. You know what almost pains me about this now is when I'm coming back to the scene that I realize that, so I painted it as a window in my painting, but it's actually meant to be a door, and it's a red door, and that would actually have looked really cool in that context in the painting, but hey, live and learn. Yeah, what a neat spot. I find there's so many houses here too. People take such little pride in their artsy little spots and putting, you know, giving their places a lot of extra love. This was about maybe 6 months ago. Wasn't feeling it painting, you know, and go out, put the headphones on, listen to a podcast or tunes, and just walk endlessly. Yeah, I got to meet those people too. Actually, they were pretty nice. I can sit there and paint for just hours on end and forget about everything around me. And, you know, you tell time by how many different albums I've listened to, or suddenly breakfast turns to lunch and you think, man, I'm hungry for dinner all of a sudden. I love getting into that spot. Almost draws too much attention to the left side of the painting now. Need to gray that down a bit. Never ends. Never ends. There's a few reasons in many ways why these are all up on the walls the way they are. A lot of them is kind of enjoying my own work while I can. before they leave forever, sort of thing. Getting inspiration from past work is a reminder of what you can accomplish. And the flip side as well is, this is just a small apartment that I live in, and the best storage for my stuff is up on the walls. That's actually a little bit interesting, just to get the difference in colors of these just growing up against the concrete there. That's kind of cool. A natural element like what is that, Japanese maple, I think, growing against the backdrop of something that's just concrete. Something that's just incredibly man-made or human-made, and that's just so, unfriendly. It seems like such a sterile and lifeless kind of environment, I guess. So to see the greenery and in this case the old red leaves kind of starting to fall off now, but yeah, it just creates a nice contrast between the synthetic, I guess, and the organic. Really, it's like about the natural surviving in a really urban environment. Plants always find a way to grow in the cracks. It's squirrels still finding a way, and birds nesting in the trees. The raccoons in Vancouver, you got skunks living in everyone's little garden beds out the front of their house, stuff like that. Like, it's just fascinating how nature just can thrive in the cracks of all the building and that we do, I suppose. To me, there's one point where I take a photo and that kind of starts me off, but then I'm, not interested at all either in being a slave to the photo. Generally speaking, I'll just do the vaguest of outlines, just freehanding it, using my paintbrush. And then that's pretty much it. And once I get to kind of a basic spot where I look at the composition of it, and if I decide I'm happy with it, then that's usually when I actually kind of put the reference away, and then it just starts to morph into something a little bit more unique, I guess. I'm 100% living DIY at this point. I've got 4 part-time casual jobs that I juggle. I've trimmed weed, I scrubbed toilets, delivered for a courier company, you name it, I'll do anything. Part of what I'm trying to learn to do now, particularly with my motley collection of jobs that I've got going at the moment. If I've got 2 hours in the morning before I go to work, I need to learn how to jump into a painting and work for those 2 hours. That's valuable time for me. If I want to properly do this, you need to be able to take what you're given. This is a scene from Tanzania, shores of Lake Victoria, just a market I was at years ago. But if I start to do the ground kind of brownish orange around here to mimic that East African soil, but then that'll leave this area here as a bit of a spotlight, and that just kind of takes the viewer's eye straight more into the middle of the painting and less away from the sides. And once I'm done, it should make the whole thing look a little less washed out than it does right now. Because to me, it definitely looks a little bit washed out. In some ways, I feel like I'm still at the stage where my style and my skills are kind of changing quite quickly. And it's not long before, 6 months or a year goes by and you think, oof, I'd really like to touch this or that up on it. But hey, sometimes you just got to end it, sign it, clear coat it and varnish it and move on and say, this is just a snapshot of what I did at the time when I did it, and move on to the next thing and just keep improving. Traveling, probably more than anything, is really what completely changed who I was. It gave me that experience I was looking for. It gave me the confidence I think that I was really looking for. probably set me back career-wise several years because I was just blowing all my money year on year doing another trip. But you know, what you gained out of it in terms of personal experience was really something else. But this is the hard part sometimes. I get picky over this. It gets a little bit scarier the older I get. You know, I've turned 40 now, and honestly, I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. It's funny when you're following a path where there is no clear path. You just make it up as you go along. That's the exciting part of it as well, is that you're constantly getting to learn and expand what you know, and occasionally you have these moments where you think, wow, have I ever come a long way?